Hello everyone, we're back in Delphi again, and we are using UniDAC and from DevArt, and so yes, this particular video is sponsored, but I want to show you a couple of components which I feel can be very useful if you ever have to write code for users to be able to import data into your database from a CSV or text file or otherwise. And the other one is if you have ever done any debugging of SQL and why things might be running slowly, then we're going to have a little look at the database monitor as well. So to do all of this, we've got a new little program here, one which will allow us to load some data here. The next one will allow us to run a query, and then we've got two buttons to start and stop debugging. So most or some of the components on the screen here you will be familiar with from the first video, and they would be the connection, the provider, the connection dialog. That I only use the connection dialog to set up the connection string, the data source, query, and yeah, they're the ones you would be familiar with. Even if you were using from in Delphi, they're sort of the standard components for a database connection. Over here now we've got a SQL Monitor, a transaction, and the UniLoader component. So the first thing we're going to look at here then is a UniLoader, which allows you to do fast imports. Now, something which I have had to write in my past programs to allow a user to import data into a database, and that could be loading data into multiple tables or whatever. And so here what we're going to do is, and to show you how I'm going to say simple this is from the start, is I'm going to remove this particular component from the form. I'm going to put a new one on right now. So here we've got a UniLoader, and you'll see that it's already assigned the connection. Of course, if I did have multiple connections, you might have to change that one. Then I select the table. So in this case here, we're just going to be looking at a sort of little contact database with names and phone numbers. And then the next thing to be specified are the columns. Now, I haven't had to do anything, and it has automatically pulled the columns out of the table and put them into here. And if we were to click on any one of these, it automatically knows the size of the field and what the field type is. So again, I haven't really had to do anything. So that's about it as far as the properties are concerned. When it comes to the events, there are a couple of ways which the loader can get the values to be inserted into the database. One is the onGetColumnData, and the other is onPut data. I find the onPut data to be easier to deal with, shall we say, than the onGetColumnData, but that's only a preference. You've got a progress function, so you can see how it's going, and there's also a transaction there. So because I've got a function for my onPut data, we're just going to assign that one, and we'll go to that function in heart. Well, actually, no, we'll go to that function now, actually. So here is the code which, or the main bit of code that we're looking at, and really the only tricky bit, if you want to call it that, as far as UniDAC is concerned, are these lines here. So what I'm doing here is that when the user clicks on the load data button, it will display a load open file dialog. The user selects a file. It calls the load method, and from the load method, this put data method will be event handler gets executed. So we're just going to load a bunch of names from a list into from a file into a list, and then we're just going to basically iterate over them, and the data loader here, basically we just put the next values, or put the values into the database, and that is all that we need to do. So nothing more than that. This particular function here, the last value is a variant, and you can see that it wants the column number, row number, and the value to be put in there. So and that's really about it. If you use the column, if you were to just look at the column data, which I'm not going to go into great depth on because I'm going to delete this code. I'm not quite sure how to specify both, so we're going to get rid of one of them. But basically, what you are given is the column which you're working with, the row number, and you get to pass back a value for that particular column, and whether or not you are then also at the end of the data set. So let's get rid of that one. And the other part which is worthwhile knowing here is that it is, when I say database independent here, basically depending on the database, it has a particular method of doing things. So if it's SQL Server, it'll use a bulk copy. For Postgres, it uses the copy command, and so on. So, which reminds me, someone did ask me in the earlier video about this PDF documentation, and I will try to remember to put a link into the description below, but if you go to the download page on the DevArt website, towards the bottom, you will find that link. And maybe what I could do here is bring it up. Let's just see what comes up here then. UniDAC, here we go. Let's go to the download page here. We are on the download page here, and as I said, just at the very bottom of the page here, there is documentation and a demo, and here you've got a link to the PDF, and done. Click on your download button and you got it. So I hope that was helpful, that part of it. Like I said in my other video, my preference is for PDF documentation versus Windows help files. So let's run this program now, and what we're just going to first of all load some test data in, and I've got two files here if they come up, and the first one is 500 random names. Thank you, ChatGPT. I'm not quite sure whether that's done yet, but we're going to go over to our little Postgres and let's see what's in there. Oh, why'd you lose a connection? What happened there, peoples? Okay, let's try that again. That's a bit better. Okay, so we're going to now run the program again, and this time we'll load in another 1,000 names, and my window keeps, I think if my window moves, it's safe to say that the operation is finished. So we'll go back into here, and we should have 500 rows, and now we should have 1,500 rows. So basically I just created some random phone numbers in here like I said. So And if I were to run the query, you can see them in here as well. Nothing overly fantastic there, I would say, although I wonder why I can't see that last column there. Let me see if I can pull it across. There we go. Okay. So that's how easy the UniLoader can be to use. Now, obviously, if you've got data in different fields, etc., you might need to work out something how to get around that. But basically, you just got, let's just say one. I'll just close that down. Go back to here. You really just have one put column data per field to deal with at the end of the day. Now, debugging is another, let's just say, big thing of mine, and what I will tell you about there is I'm going to say a little tiny quirk which we're going to come up, which we will see in a little bit. And well, I'm going to call it a quirk at least. So in the form here, I've got a start debugging and a stop debugging, and I have also, like I said, for these to work, or for the debug and monitoring to work, we've got an SQL monitor. Now the SQL monitor basically has in here, you've got a few options as far as you can connect remotely to something. You've also got options as to what you let me move that over to right. So you've got all these options here, or things you can trace. I will say that not all of the options here have been implemented, and some are reserved for future use. So just be aware of that if you are using it. But if it is not a replacement, say, for a full-blown profiler type tool that you might run on this server itself, or with a from the database server provider. But if you needed a tool to run on the client side to see what was happening, it would be very useful there. So in order to use it, now what I have here then, also I should mention, is a on SQL event handler, and that basically will excuse me, just write out a line. I just wanted to see what would happen separate to the program. Now the program which which it talks to, which is this one here, is available free on the DevArt website. So now we've got to look at, well, how do we make this happen? So if we jump into the event handler on clicking of my button to start debugging, I have to tell the SQL monitor that, hey, you're going to be doing something now. Here's the part which I'm going to refer to, and that's a little bit of a quirk in that the other components, like the query or like the connection, they each have a debug property here which needs to be set to true. And if it's not set to true, you're not going to get your debugging, and if it is set to true, well, obviously you will. So in order for the stuff or the messages to appear in the dbMonitor, we need to enable that debug property on the components we're watching. So if you were to be creating, let's say, things on the fly, be that a query result or something like that, then you'd want to you need to write your own code to make sure that that debug property is set so that, well, basically you can trace what's going to happen. Because obviously the other way around it would be you need to add your own tracing code, before and after the, an SQL statement. Of course, you may not get the benefit of seeing how long did something take to run. Similarly, on the stopping debugging, we need to turn debugging off, and then we will, I'm doing this to play safe, where I'm telling each component that debugging is not happening. Now I'm going to we're also going to look at one more thing, which I'm going to just comment that line of code here, and we're going to see what happens in a minute. So let us run this program again. And I'm basically doing a select star from contact in here, and I will start debugging, and nothing has happened yet. Let's go over to our window here, and you can see in this particular window here, I don't know if I can make that much bigger. Anyway, so far what it's told me here is it's given me the start time, no duration, monitoring has started. So now if we run the same query again, or also run this query I should say, I'm going to see that might be the MO dialog, but now we also get another line comes into here. Also in my window here I've got a SQL command was executed. Over here it also gives me the duration and the statement executed, etc. And the other, I guess one of the nice things about this is that if you were to have this on a customer site, maybe you're running it with their permission, you could, if you had remote access, you could like to do everything on their behalf. You can actually save the log to file. So let us have a little look at that one. Let's just stick it on the desktop, and we'll call this one aaa.log. Minimize that one, and now let's go to there. So here you can see that this query here started here, took that duration there, and it executed that command there. So again, useful information if you are debugging. Now what I am going to do here is I'm going to now just close the program and see what happens, shall we? Now, this is the interesting part here, and I'll tell you why, because I did comment out the line regarding stopping debugging. And I'm not doing this to tell DevArt that the product isn't very good, but it's to note that if you are doing any debugging in your program, the one thing you need to do is before your program closes is that you need to make sure that your debugging is not running. So here what I'm doing basically is I'm stopping my debugging and going from the, and then the program will then finish its closing action, and we're going to do the same thing again right now. Keep in mind what I've just done is I've just added in I'm just calling my code to stop the debugger. And again, by the way, you'll see in here the code to say, well, actually I haven't done anything yet really, so we're going to run that query. We should be starting debugging again. Okay, monitoring is started, And what I'm going to do now, let's see what happens here. Update. Set phone no equals 123, where contact name equals, basically it's not going to do anything. And in actual fact, it should, because I do not have any indexes on this particular table here, I'm also, I'm sort of like expecting it to do a table scan. While I didn't load in, let's say, 1 million records, we'll just see what the duration might be. So we've got that happening. Do that part there. What's happening there? Unterminated string. So I can actually see errors in here as well. So what have we got wrong here? So that's quite useful as well from a debugging as a debugging tool. So let's do that one, and we will run that query again. Column phone? No, maybe it's got a. I don't even know my own table. I created the table yesterday. So let's try that again. Okay. Well, that was quite quick, wasn't it? So what I was hoping to show was, see, if you had a duration which you considered to be excessive, you have an idea of what the code you should be looking for, in your program to solve the problem, with. So now, like I said, I'm just going to close the program now again. Is closing, and this particular time I am not getting any error, and I can tell you right now that if we go into the task manager, that here we go, the monitoring is now finished. So it doesn't, what I'm getting at is it just doesn't like closing while debugging's running. So that was the only quirk I found with the program. However, here we are. So look, that's about it for this particular video. We looked at two more components. One was that UniLoader. The other is the debugging. Now the debugging one, or the database monitor, it can show you errors in your SQL. It can show you how long things take to run. You could run on a client site and get the log back from the customer. You can also see here that I don't have any debugging code at all in my own program, except for this little bit of code here, which just shoves something out into the bottom window. So, yeah, I hope you got something out of it, and until next time, happy coding, and I'll see you then. Bye.